Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. You'll get 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection. And with the welcome offer of 150,000 points, your business can soar to all new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
You know what's smart? Enjoying a fresh gourmet meal at home that you didn't have to cook. Meet Factor, your loophole in the laws of mealtime. Chef-crafted meals delivered with a tap, ready in just 2 minutes. You know what's even smarter? Treating yourself without cheating your goals. Factor is dietitian approved, chef prepared, and you plated. Pretty smart, huh? Refresh your routine and eat smart with Factor. Learn more at factormeals.com.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello, welcome to Daily Red, your lunchtime catch-up on all things Liverpool FC and your daily reminder that the Reds are top of the league. And no amount of bedwetting can change that. Now, we do have some news that is not very good and may be cause for some bedwetting. Diogo Jota is doubtful for tomorrow's game against Brentford. He has yet another injury. Hopefully it's something minor. He did take part in some parts of training yesterday and then took part in an individual training program alongside Luis Diaz, who also missed parts of team training. Given Darwin has been atrocious this season, we really could do without Jota missing so many games. And it is this constant flow of injuries with him that is the primary reason that a lot of people, including myself, think maybe this summer it might be wise to cash in on him. Now, look, he's a really good player. Nobody would doubt that. When we signed him, he was the ideal fourth attacker. And now he's still the ideal fourth attacker. The problem is that our starting number 9 isn't good enough. Like, he just hasn't developed into being good enough, which pushes Jota into a third attacker kind of role. And it's a little bit beyond what you really want from him. And then when you factor in the injuries, it just becomes unsustainable. Like, Diogo Jota is a really good player. But when you start looking at how many games he's missed through injury, and it's not just a recency thing. Since the 18-19 season, this is now season 7, since that beginning. He's missed double figures of games every season bar one. And he's missed over 20 games 3 different times. In 18-19, it's 14 games through 3 injuries. In 19-20, it is 12 games through 2 injuries. 2021, 23 games through 2 injuries. 21-22, 4 games through 1 injury. But then 22-23, 29 games through 2 injuries. Last season, 25 games through 3 injuries. And if he misses out tomorrow, that will be 13 games through 2 injuries. He's really good, but it's a certain point you just have to stop and say, is it worth keeping him around if he's going to miss such a big chunk of the season? And we're in an unusual situation with him where he's 28. He's just turned 28. He's got 2 years left in his contract. I think there's zero chance that we're going to extend that contract. So you're really looking at Jota and saying, we've got 3 options here. Option A, we just keep him until his contract runs out in 2027 and allow him to leave as a free agent. Option B would be you sell him in the summer. And option C would be you split the difference. You keep him until the summer of 2026 and then you let him go. You sell him at that point. He'd be 29, pushing 30. But the risk in doing that is that he has another injury-plagued season next year. And maybe there's just no value for him then. With 1 year on his deal, he'd be coming off what could potentially be 7 out of 8 years, missing double figures of games. And potentially this season, he could go and miss 20. And if he missed 20 again next year, you'd be looking at 5 seasons missing 20 or more games. You're just not going to be able to sell him. And it's really unfortunate because if the guy could stay fit, nobody would even consider it. And if he could stay fit, you probably would look at extending his contract, maybe by an additional 2 years, because of his ability to score a goal and impact a game off the bench. You'd probably look at him as the ideal player for that type of role. But if he can't be there, what is the purpose? And there's a lot of players in our squad where you really do start looking at them and thinking, you're a good player, but what is the purpose? And we might have something coming maybe early next week looking at that. Diaz obviously potentially a doubt now for this one as well. And if both of them miss out, that means likely Darwin starts up front with Cody left wing. Though I have seen a few people suggest Jayden Dan start up front instead of Darwin. I think if you're doing that, and look, I'm kind of on board with it, but I do think if you're doing that, you're telling Darwin, look, you need to leave now. You don't have any future at this club. You need to go now because a 19-year-old, a guy who's just turned 19, is now ahead of you. Jota's ahead of you. A left winger's ahead of you, and a teenager's now ahead of you. So you're the 4th choice striker. And it may well be that he goes in this window. If the right offer comes in, and Sam Maguire has reported that there was an offer, and I would believe Sam over denials from James Pearce. If that offer has come in and we've said no, I think it means we want more than what the offer was. If that bigger offer comes in, I think we just have to say goodbye. I think we do. Like, what is he actually offering us? Again, with Darwin, what is the point here? Like, the lad's had more yellow cards than he's had goals in the league this season. This is your striker. That's not acceptable. All competitions this year, he's got 4 goals. He's got 2 in the Premier League. Ahmed Diallo scored 3 in 12 minutes last night. Ahmad Diallo. Look, I was a big Darwin defender. And last season, there were real signs that he was he was starting to get it and that it was starting to click for him. And I really did think this year he might take everything he's learned the last 2 years with this new manager coming in who has a model and a mandate of creating high probability shooting opportunities. And I thought Darwin's going to get so many tap-ins. And if you look at a lot of the goals we've scored this year, we've gotten a lot of tap-ins. It just hasn't been him. Because when he's gotten those opportunities, he's missed them. I don't think Darwin has ever fully been able to wrap his brain around the pressure and minimize that against himself. I think he's allowed it to become too big a factor. Joining a club like us for the fee he joined for, the expectation, etc., etc. And like, I get that on social media, there's a lot of fans, and I use that word lightly, there's a lot of fans that, loosely I should say, there's a lot of fans that are very, very abusive towards Darwin Nunez. They just are. But that's not the case at matches. Like, I don't remember a guy being taken in by the fans and propped up by the fans quite as much without having done great things to warrant it. Like, this guy chases back and gives away a throw-in and people are chanting his name. And that's great. Like, that's all well and good. And as I always say, you'd never doubt the fella's work rate. You'd never doubt his desire. Like, he clearly wants to succeed. He clearly wants to succeed. He clearly wants to do his best for the club. But there is something missing between the ears with him. And I'm not saying he's stupid. I'm not buying into that nonsense of, oh, he's just thick. Does he have stupid moments? Yeah, he does. Like, that's fair enough. So do most people. This criticism of him that he struggled to learn English. How many languages do you speak? Like, learning other languages is quite difficult. Some people just don't have an aptitude for it. I've got a friend who's got a doctorate and 2 master's degrees. And he can't learn Irish, let alone another language. So maybe Darwin just struggled with learning a language. What about it? It happens. There were enough Spanish-speaking players. I can't speak English, so, there's enough Spanish-speaking players in the group, including the Portuguese-speaking lads who can all speak Spanish. There's enough of them for the communication to still be fine with Darwin. That's not a thing. He's not stupid. The lad is not stupid. He might be a bit immature. I could see that. I do think there is a bit of immaturity about him. And I think that's what factors into him struggling to cope with a lot of the pressure. Him getting a little bit frantic in front of goal. Frantic, I think, is the best word for him in front of goal, especially at the moment. It's almost like every single opportunity with him is life and death. Like, he's taking it nearly too seriously. And I think this goes back to him putting in an incredible amount of effort. You watch him play. Go and watch the second United goal. And watch him sprint from where he starts to where he ends up. Is it No, it's not the second goal. It's the one where Trent gives the ball away real cheaply up in their third. Trent gives the ball away cheaply. And Darwin overtakes almost everybody to get back to our box. He overtakes the entire midfield and both fullbacks to get back into our box to help. And I feel like he's trying to prove himself with every single action. Like, do you remember, was it last season? There was that moment where the ball, I think it was last season, because Gravenberch scored, I think, off the follow-up. It was a Europa League game. Ball was played into him. And he does this gorgeous little dribble, rounds the goalkeeper, does all the hard stuff, and does it with ease. Looked like Torres. And then when it came time to shoot, he made a mess of it. Because he did all the other stuff off of instinct. And in this situation, he thought about it. And again, that's not to say he's stupid. It's when he thinks about it, he thinks, what if I miss? What if I miss here? And like in that instance, when he rounds the keeper, he could take a touch. He could take a touch and roll it into the net.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
At your job, do you ever have to deal with a nose roller? How about a snub pulley? Well, if you're installing a new conveyor belt system, dealing with the different components can sound like you're speaking a foreign language. Luckily, you've got a team ready to help. Grainger's technical product specialists are fluent in maintenance, repair, and operations. So whenever you want to talk shop, just reach out. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
But he doesn't. He goes first time, hits the post, comes back, Gravenberch finishes it. We go on and win the game anyway, so ultimately it didn't matter. But that's a prime example of the Darwin experience. This flash of brilliance, and then this moment of incompetence. But I think it's all in his head. I think he's taken all the pressure of club record signing for one of the most historic clubs in the world, and he's just put it on himself. You see it sometimes at Uruguay as well, where the next Suarez tag really does hurt him sometimes, and then other times he's just magnificent. But he's never felt like he's comfortable in his own skin at Liverpool. He always feels like he's, one bad thought from just throwing in an absolute stinker. And unfortunately, it most likely means we have to cut bait. And that's fine. Sometimes transfers don't work. And we've been fortunate over the last 10 years that far more transfers have worked than haven't. But sometimes they don't work. And the thing to do is to cut bait and run, not play it out. One of the worst things we did was keep Naby for his whole contract and let him go on a free. We should have sold him in 2021 and taken whatever, or even after the 2022 season, when he'd had a good year, we should have taken whatever we could rescue out of that and moved him on. He didn't work out because of injuries. Ox didn't work out because of injuries. We had offers to sell Ox. We didn't. Emre left on a free. We could have sold him a year before. We had an offer from Juventus, widely reported. We didn't. He leaves on a free. We should have sold Mane earlier. We should have sold Bobby earlier. We should have sold Fabinho earlier. We should have sold Henderson years earlier. We should have sold Lallana earlier. We should have sold Lovren earlier. We should have sold Ginny a year earlier. If he wasn't going to be kept, we should have sold him. We are in a position where, because of the way our ownership wants to operate, we have to be self-sustaining or as close to as possible. And that means not being sentimental, not allowing players to just be at the club because reasons, and not keeping players around when they clearly haven't worked out. This summer, I would like to really see the beginning. And look, I know people are going to say, oh, but we're top of the league. And we are, and that's great. But it's one season. You know what I want to do next season? I want to win the league. And you know what I want to do the year after? I want to win the league. And the year after that, win the league. We're taking advantage of a down season for City. We're taking advantage of Chelsea not being ready. We're taking advantage of Arsenal being Arsenal, the specialists in failure. But nobody would look at this Liverpool team this year and say, well, they're as good as City were at their apex. They're as good as the first City team was at its apex. They're as good as Klopp's Liverpool was at its apex. Nobody would compare them. You just wouldn't. This Liverpool team is very good with some great players that elevate the level. But we need to ensure that when City bounce back, when Villa continue to grow, when Chelsea are ready, when Arsenal finally get some real winners in the room, that we can continue to have success. Because I don't want to be sitting here in 4 years talking about Arne Slot and saying, well, like, it's great that he won a league title in year 1, but now year 4 is over. We haven't won one in 3 years, and we don't look like winning one again. Because that's kind of how it got with Jurgen. I know people will say we could have won the league last year. Yeah, but we weren't going to. And in 21-22, remember how that season actually went in the Premier League. City were well ahead and slowed down. We caught up with them, but we were never ahead of them, even though we had a better team than them at the time. Some weeks, other weeks not so much. We didn't feel like we were going to win the league. It felt like, well, if they continue to slip up, then we can win the league. But either they're going to hand it to us or they're going to win it. It wasn't a thing where we were going to take it. We were always relying on them to slip up. Whereas 18-19 didn't feel like that. It felt like a real head-to-head. And 19-20, we blew them out the water. 2021 was a disaster. 21-22 was good. 22-23 was a disaster. And last season, it did always feel a little bit... It felt like Jurgen's decision to leave was going to inspire us to win a title. Like we were going to get this storybook ending. But with hindsight, you look at the injuries we had, and it just... There's nobody that was going to be able to win the league going through what we went through last year with those injuries. And then losing Mo, and then Mo coming back and not being nearly the Mo that we're used to. It was just never going to happen. So, you don't want to get there with Arne. You want to continue to have real success. Because ultimately, we underachieved with Klopp. One title, one Champions League. Not enough for that team that we had, that squad that we had in 18-19 and 19-20, and what it was on the brink of becoming if we continued to follow the same model that had built that squad. But we didn't. And we didn't cash in on the fact that we were the best team in Europe for probably 18 months. And some of that was that players got too comfortable. It felt like they'd somehow achieved everything there was to achieve. You see it all the time, this won the lot stuff. It's all nonsense. Loads of players have won the lot and then gone and won it all again. That's how real winners act. Win it and then go win it again. Forget that you've won it already, because it doesn't count for anything in your playing career. At the end of your career, then you can sit back and admire your medals. But while you're playing, try and win as many of them as you can. And we underachieved under Jurgen, one league title, one Champions League. Simple as that. And we want to be more ruthless now. There is an opportunity here because, look, City are spending money. People are getting all excited. Well, City are going to be back next year. They're going to dominate for years to come. Based on two central defenders you'd never heard of a week ago. And arguably the most overhyped forward in Europe. And what else? Andrea Cambiasso, he's good left back. He's a 30 million left back. City are looking at paying 60 million for him. Oh, but Haaland signed a 9.5-year contract. It's overly meaningless. It is overly meaningless. Does anyone actually think Erling Haaland is going to play out that contract? Not a chance. He'll either sign a new one in two or 3 years, or he'll be gone. The 9.5 years thing, it's just for headlines. It's just for headlines. And what it means is, if they get punished as they should, and they go down, they'll just loan him out for a couple of years. Then they'll have him back. They'll give him a big new deal. This new deal is where you're going to pay him over £1 million a week. He's one of the most limited footballers in the league. He's Chris Wood with better PR and more pace. So what are we worried about? What are we worried about? Two centre-backs you hadn't heard of a week ago. Great. Doesn't fix their horrendous age profile of their squad. There's an opportunity for us. If we make the right moves with our squad, including moving on players like Darwin and Diogo Jota, there's an opportunity for us to build a squad that can win 3 of the next 5 Premier Leagues. There really is. There's not going to be dominance like we've seen. Pep's not staying past 2027. If he's still there in 2027, I'd be mildly surprised. I think part of the Pep contract was so that they could tie Haaland down to a new one and get him to remove his release clause. Because that was all tied together. We just need to get back to being the club we were, that built the team that won the Champions League in the league. That club, the way we operated then, there was a ruthlessness to a lot of what we did. And we need to get back to doing that. We need to be less sentimental than we were in that run, though. And when mistakes happen, and unfortunately Darwin Nunez will be ultimately tagged as a mistake in the transfer market, you need to be able to say, you know what, fair enough, didn't work. Best of luck. We go a different direction, you go a different direction. I got onto this by talking about tomorrow's game with Brentford and whether you play him or Dan's. And I actually, at this point, I'm sorry to say, I think I would trust Jayden Dan's more. I think I would. But I think you've got to play Darwin, because otherwise you are literally saying to him, go now. And you're telling other clubs, this guy's got no future here anyway. So why would anyone give you the big money? All of a sudden, that 70 million offer that we turned down turns into a 40 million offer because he's your fourth choice number 9. What else is there? There is obviously coming up against a couple of ex-Reds tomorrow, Fabio Carvalho and Sepp Vandenberg. Mo Salah is wanted as a Neymar replacement. Sure, fair enough, you know. We've been hearing that for a while. We had, is it Graham Bailey? One of the like Uber spoofers. The Uber spoofers that writes for those woeful websites that literally are just clickbait, come out and say that he could reveal through his sources that Trent was going to announce he was going to Real. That seems to have been bullshit, which, you know, is not a surprise to anybody. On AnfieldIndex.com, there is a piece about our upcoming fixture with Brentford. There is a piece about our recruitment model, a claim that is broken, which I disagree with. It's a piece about Andy Robertson, a piece about Diogo Jota. And then, from a podcast perspective, there is a new Scouser Tommies, which I would recommend you all give a listen to. There's the new David Lynch podcast. There is Arne Slot's press conference. I'm sure Mr. Davis will have a post-press conference pod coming as well. There is Chat G&G. Give the boys a listen. Remind Gags that he's 56 years of age. And we're all on to him now. And then there is a Stat Me Up as well, which is Dave Davis and Phil Barter. There is a Scouted, which is out. There is a Rival Recon. Took me a second to remember the name. A Rival Recon, which is out as well. So lots and lots to go and give a listen to there. And there is, of course, our Academy podcast. It's Ben Pescott and Lewis Boyer. And I would highly recommend giving it a listen. Absolutely outstanding stuff. It's only available on AI Pro. So go and give it a listen. And I will see you all on Monday. Davis will be here over the weekend. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.